listeners, Harika here, and I'm super excited to welcome you to UppTalk. If you're ready to learn and get your hands work wonders in the world of information technology, then you're in the right place. When I say UppTalk, we are not just another edtech company. Consider we are your learning partner committed to unlocking your full potential. Whether you're stepping into the world of technology for the first time or looking to advance your career, we provide top-tier, hands-on courses to build up your career. Let's take our first step towards learning here and explore it.
Day 1 for Studio. We have how many integration types? Let's have it. If you have any questions, I'll ask questions. You can just answer it. Free. No judgment. Nothing. How many integration we can create in a Workday Studio? Type of integration. I'm asking. Asking about generic. It's like generic one. It's like outbounding tone. You are kind of asking. That's a directional integration types. Like P. And then we have Studio, or we can call it this. Custom integrations. Any other types you have? Cloud connectors. It's basically on core connectors. That's end to end. The package connectors. These are the 4 types of integration that you can develop in Workday. Now, when you design a studio, you are expected to check. You got a requirement. I want an integration. Then you have to decide which type of integration that I'm going to go. The first option for the requirement. Do I have any end-to-end connectors available or not? And if I have end-to-end connectors, and if my requirement is meeting, then you should go for end-to-end connector. And that is the first option. The second option, when you will go first to AAB. Basically simple integrations. You have one data source and maybe sending one destination. You can use the AAB. If it is one-on-one, it is going to be AB. Even if it is one-on-one. If there is a specific ask that I want a full file, if the ask is I want full file, then you will go for it. And give me a second. File. One data source. And one delivery. Or then you go for a. And how about core connector? When you go for core connector, especially for change data, change. Core connectors. This also, mostly I would say it is one-on-one. And here what you will be looking for. If it is that the art changes only file. If we are looking for, then we'll go for a core connector. Just asking like core connector. You are saying one. Maybe it can be multiple also. If the delivery are multiple, you want to configure. You can go for multiple. Correct? But when you say multiple, what do you mean by multiple? Let's see. Let me try that. multiple delivery locations. If you are talking about delivery, we can have multiple delivery steps added as part of your business process and you can deliver. But again, how do I see that? You can configure one delivery at a time, correct? When I say one delivery, there are multiple steps. You can add it as part of multiple steps you will have. You will add multiple deliveries. Then it is a kind of child integration that you are creating it. Correct? This is your. Here the question is like, say for I need to segregate few data, say for demographic data and say for job data. I need to create two files. Changes data I'm talking about. Two files. One file is in one destination and another file is in other destination. Can I get two? In this case, do I need to add two document transformation and two delivery in this case? And is that possible through core connectors? Now, as I said, when you create an integration, there will be one parent integration and then remaining all child integration. What is your requirement? That matters. We are telling you that it is a one data source. You want job profile and the other one is personal data. Personal data, for example. We are talking about two different templates, which means you need to core connector to get the delta, or two templates to get the delta changes. Then the moment you get a requirement that I want changes only file, but for a two business objects, then you should suggest that you should go for a two different templates, which is nothing but two different core connector to different integration systems. If they say no, I don't want to core connectors or two integration systems, then what we can do, we can push it to custom integration in custom integration. Prepare the service, get the delta, and then no, merge it, and then deliver merger. Know whatever the logic you want to do, and then deliver it to your downstream systems. But they want to use only core connector, then it should be a two different integrations. That's where the core connector comes into picture. And then the custom integration. Here, custom integrations. When you will go for a custom integration, custom integration will go when there is a one-to-many. Let's put this way, many to one or many to many or one to many. Something. Thing are covered. Many data sources. One delivery or many data sources. Many delivery, one data source. You want to make many deliveries, but you can do this using core connector or other stuffs also. But still you have a complex logic that needs to be built. You want Studio component to be there for certain logics, to write logics. Let's put that way. That's when we'll go for one to many. This scenario will rarely come otherwise. Otherwise, it is many to one or many to many. That's how it is going to be. We got on Studio integrations when we will go for it. Now again, I'm just entering connector. You have an idea. There are two products. One day and any excellent product. Let's put the service now. Cornerstone, for example. What they do, they talk each other. Products. Product will talk each other. Product team will talk each other and then say, I want all the active employees sent from Workday to service, for example. Then what they do? Workday creates the API and then ServiceNow consumes that API. What is as an integration consultant? What is your job? You're just going to say you're going to connect both the systems. The request and response will be consumed by their team. They have their own setup of APIs. All the configurations are done already. It's a pre-configured template. And what you're going to get? You're going to ask what is the username and password that I require to connect to a system. And then I'm going to encrypt or decrypt the file that I'm going to send. Then in that case, you're going to get those details and then feed in the data. That's it then. Either the ServiceNow will consume. When I say consume, they'll pull the data from Workday and then load the data in their system. When integration consultant, your job is going to be just configure the credentials and then encryption, decryption key, and that's it. It will be taken care of and connect to us. But as in an AAB, you're building an integration. When you're building an integration, it is the one data source and then one delivery. And that one data source can be what are the different? I mean, what data source it will accept. What are the type of data source? We have one data source that will accept. Custom report. Can you use it? And then you can also have the website. We can extract the data using reports or we can use you can extract the data using the service. iReport and web service we can use as a data source and then delivery. You can deliver the data to P. You can attach part of the event. And then what else you can? Now you can send the data to Amazon, Google Cloud. These are all the options that we have for delivery. Now I want to. You have created and then as part of the AAB, you put a report as a service and then your delivery is FP. You got an output file. And now the downstream system says I want an output file in the format of CSV, for example. The output file. I hope you know that. You can select an option. What type of output? Correct? As part here, you can deliver this file as XML format and CSV and go for a JSON. Format. These are all that by default. The AI gives those options. The XML, CSV, JSON, and even in XML also, we have what type of XML that it can deliver. Let's move. Color. You can deliver the simple XML. Work the XML file and then CSV JSON for this format. By default, you'll be getting it. But you know the simple XML, yes, it is? Your customer is asking for a transformation. The XM method you're getting it. I want to transform that. How do we do that? We can also add, accessibility, custom accessibility code. Accessibility transformation. Accessibility transformation. We can do it. Using accessibility transformation, we can say, what is that you're looking for? Is it XML output that you wanted or CSV format that you're looking for? We can do the accessibility transformation using XML or CSV. With accessibility is having its own transmission attachment. You have done it. Now there is a ask or there is a requirement. You have to send the data to my downstream system. The employee ID that you are going to send that to downstream system. If it is more than 10 characters, my downstream system is not going to consume it. You have to trim that data of the employee name to 10 characters. And when you trim certain names, I have to know which names you have trimmed it. Then it should be part of your event. Your event output should say which names I have trimmed it. How do we get that? I have to send the data to downstream system. If certain field is 10 characters or more, you trim the field data to 10 characters. And then you update the integration tenant with the name what you trimmed. Now how we can do that? Oh no, you are providing the output file to them and also updating your system as well. You are saying, when I say my system in the Workday event, integration event, have you used XPV? It will update the data in your tenant as well. Not day. I said in the Workday event. Have you used XPV? I heard about, but it's not like that much work. That's fine. Not a problem. I'm not going to cover. I'm just giving high level. Then how? What type of integration to use? Your ETNB XTT will come into picture when you want to update data back to integration event. That's how you do it, but EP and XTT will work only in document transformation. It won't work as well. It cannot be done in XSLT transformation. You are saying, because we can't do it. We can't do it in XTT. That's you want to do ET. Go ahead. No, carry on. ET and XTT will work only on document transformation, not on the XLT transformation. That's about the EB on a very high level, in nutshell. Any questions on EI? As you said, you are going to update your data integration event through EP and XTT, and it's a separate business process. You will be calling document transformation from EIB, EI business process. That's correct. Document transformation. E. What is the difference? Like in accessibility transformation, you are mentioning your text file through within the SLT code. It's the format is txt or something, whatever you need, the output file. And what is the difference like ETB? If we add XTT or ETB or document transformation, like that is also an attachment. XSLT code, you are modifying and defining the file. This ETB and XTTS classes are delivered by Workday. You have FEXO. That's a generic programming language. Correct? Whereas Workday was saying you have an XSLT, you can do a transformation. But I have many customers that customers are going to ask the same kind of task again and again. Because in HCMN space, all in HCMN space, you're going to send the data to downstreams. And 100 customers say, my downstream system will not allow more than 10, then which means you want a trim option. In XSLT, we can do a trim, but you need to write like 10-20 lines of code. Instead, I'll write the class for you. That the function is available as part of your ETB and then include that class as part of your XLT. Then you have access to the function. That's how ETB brings the class inside XSLT. In XSLT transmission, it is one way. You get the report output, you transform, you deliver it. It's a sequential or asynchronous correct. Whereas in document transmission, it is a synchronous call. You create a report and then you do a document transmission using ETB. You deliver the file. In fact, you go back and then update your event with the trim data. You want asynchronous call, go for XSLT transmission. You want synchronous. Synchronous also certain things only. If there are some errors, you want to update your tenant or update your event. That this many got errored out. This many got successfully completed. You can give it. Now there is a function called ETB, call and severity. Using severity, you can just put that you know this many got completed. This many got errored out and you can send the data back to event. That is possible only using TB and XTD. Not through accessibility transmission. There was another question. You have an EIB and then as part of EIB, you will do the accessibility transmission. But if you want document transmission, then you have to have EIB and then add a business process and add a document transmission as part of a BP1 step, correct? That's what you mentioned. There is another way to do it. If you want to use E, TB and XTD, you don't require EIB. In document transmission itself, you can input your custom report. And then you can do the transmission as part of it. Then what happens? There is no business process step involved here. Or you're reducing one step here. How do you get the data source in document transformation? Is that custom report? I said custom report. You can get. How do you input in document transformation? We have an option. I didn't use. We have an option as part of only standalone document transformation. If you create integration system and only use document transformation, possibly. Is it possible to call the input data from its custom record? And only. There is no other document, only document transformation. Possible. That's it. Then in that case, what you're doing? Here it is EIB plus document transmission. There are two integrations in fact. For fetching data, you are using EIB. For transforming, you are using document transmission. But if you use document transmission itself, if your data source is report, then you can do ET and XTT. Only one integration. That takes care of extract as well as the transmission. That's more. Now core connector. Core connector, we go for delta changes. They are mentioned as part of delta changes. What is that main thing that we need to know on core connector? When you launch the core connector, the four things are there very important. Last effective date, last successful effective date, entry date, and last successful entry date. It will look for a change between the enter date and is it effective. In that case, you will get the data in the output, or the data is not entered between those dates, but the event is effective. Then you will get this data in the output report. Those four dates define what data that you wanted in your output file. The four dates are, let's put that the four dates are important for trying to say now again one template. The core connector will use only one template. What are the templates you have used? I used only worker core connector worker. We have other core connector templates. What are the templates we have? Many benefits related. I have seen many. Position job profile. Benefits payroll. All these templates are available. Based on that, individual template have its own integration attributes set for those individual templates. You have to configure those attributes and select the data section that you wanted based on your requirement. That's how we go for a core connector. Now that's about core connector. Any questions on core connector on a high level? We're good. Now that you got a requirement, the requirement says I can't use my endpoint connector because the endpoint connector is not available or it is not meeting the requirements. Then you'll go for the next option, which is a core connector. If core connector is there, then we'll check whether core connector it is not just a delta changes only. We can go for a full file also. I hope you have seen that option. In core connector, we can extract full file also. If core connector end to end connector is not going to fulfill my requirement, then I'll go for a core connector. If core connector also not going to fulfill my requirement, I'll check whether AB is possible or not. If AB also not possible, that's when you will go for a custom integration. This is the order in which Workday also suggests to build an integration or select the integration type for your requirement. We're good. Now the type of integration. We can have what type of the data flows. Now we are talking about only Workday integration or Studio integration. As part of Studio integration, what type of Studio integration we can build it? Any day. When I say type, it is an inbound. You can create 3 types of studio integration. You can extract the data from your third-party system and then push the data into. Let's put this way. This is inbound. It's nothing but one that will Workday. And then this is going to be from Workday to vendor. We develop boomerang integrations. I didn't check today, but I got an opportunity to see those integrations. How those boomerang it is going to be. You're going to fetch the data or extract the data from Workday and then do the logics and then update the data again into Workday. That's why it starts from Workday and ends with Workday. Is it a scoping out course? Now I can just show how it works, but we'll see again. Since you're already working 2 ways, we can do it. I can go for a typical session with the course. We can cover it. Or it is your need. Because it's a one-on-one, I'm giving that option. If it is a batch, then I can obviously get that option. You say, this is the basic things. Honestly speaking, say for going by those report writing, repolling report, peating out bounds. For me, it's basic because I know how to call and how to. My intention is to add some complex things within the report. I get. We'll go complex. I will go complex. No problem. Now, for example, I want to know how the new run works. Say for one to use in higher event. Say for one, integration is generating data. We can use it higher business process. Just show me. That will be sufficient. But I'll give you the business case also when you will go. Inbound. You know that from vendor you're fetching, you're getting the data and you have to update the object set. That's when you will get the input file from vendor and you get the data and then update and outbound. You have a business object in both. The downstream system wants the data and that's when you'll go for it. Outbound integration. For example, time offs. Every quarter, you have a time off data in your profile. You have like 10 days or 15 days of time off. You have it in your profile. But the company policy says in a quarter. If you haven't taken the leaves which are more than 10 days, for example, then all your leaves more than 10 days will be lapsed. You have 15 days in your profile. End of the quarter. I'll check. Is that number of time offs that you have is 10 days or less, then I'll leave as it is. If it is 10 days or more, then I'll lapse all the days that are greater than 10. I'll update your leave balance system. I hope this scenario could have seen in India. We have this option. Every year you have to take certain leaves, otherwise your leaves will be lapsed. And now go to the US also. We have that option. Leave lapse. Then that's a perfect example. Your leaves will be lapsed. Then that's when what you have to do. You are going to fetch the data from Workday and then check what is the number of time off that I have. Is it 15 days? Then I will go and do the calculation based on the condition that is given to me. And if the number of days is greater than 10, I'll just update only 10 days back to that worker profile. Understood. This. That's when we'll go for a boomerang. Or you hired an employee. And that employee. I did not fill certain data in their profile. Then you're asked to check on a daily basis. You go and check whether that particular employee has filled the data. Otherwise, you updated default data, for example. Then that's when we'll go for a Workday boomerang if it's the employee data and check whether it is empty or data is there. And if it is empty, then you send default data back to Workday and update it. It is also possible. We're good. We talked about Studio and inbound or bound boomerang. Now let's talk about inbound a little more deeper. Now this is Studio inbound program. How do you design your Studio inbound? How do you design? Now you have a requirement. That requirement, it says, I am going to get data vendor is going to send employee skills data, for example. You think that the talent is maintained in some other system. It is not involved. Employee skills are there and in another third-party vendor talent system. Now you're asked to update the skills of an employee into Workday. That skills will be coming from the talent system, third-party talent system. And your input file will have employee ID. And then what do we have? I'll take a very simple one. Skills category. All this data, they are sending it. Now you have to update this data into Workday to make sure you are in sync with. The data that we have in talent. We're good. This is your requirement. How do you design an integration for this? Here a question is like Studio inbound, as you say. Why should we? First of all, we need to decide why should we go for Studio? Is it very complex or something? How do we decide? Based on it, because we can do through inbound, a business. If we call the web service, maybe talent related that with service. If I need to find out and using Studio, using EIBY, which point we decide we'll go for Studio. Now, when you want a validation, a heavy validation to be done. When you use EIB, what happens? In EI, you will use that web service. You feed the data and then load the data, and wherever you have given the employee skills data, it will be loaded. All, and if you don't give certain details, then it is going to error out saying that these are all not loaded. Correct. But you don't know why it is not loaded. It is going to give a generic error message saying that this employee data is not loaded because the employee is not there, or skills are not there, or category is not matching. It is going to give a very high level error message. But whereas in Studio you want a detailed logging, you want to go for validation, a strict validation, and you want to do a logics, heavy logics. In this, there are no heavy logics. But there is an ask that I want to do, a heavy logics. And whatever the data which of the data is not loaded into Workday. I want detailed logging. Why it is not loaded? You have to say employee ID is not matching or employee ID is having. Instead of numbers, we are having alphabets. There are chances. Workday designed to have only numerics. Your vendor is sending an employee ID as A, B, C, for example. Then you have to say clearly why you can't load the data. Because I have to send the data back to my vendor and tell them, hey, you send this 100 data. I have loaded only 80. Remaining 20 are not loaded. It is not loaded because these are not there. The moment you want heavy validation, heavy transmission or logics to be returned, and then detail logging, then we'll go for Studio Inbound. We will also develop the integration. There's no question. But the moment they ask that, all this for items that I mentioned, detailed validation, logging every transaction, then Studio is the next option other than AAB. There is one more option that we can look for. I have an idea. Core connector inbound, whether we have it or not. But in both the cases, you know what? In both the cases, there is a template that is there. AB has its own template. You want to load the data, but your vendor says, I won't send the data based on the template that you're going to give me. Instead, I'm going to send the data that I have. You prepare your own template. However you want to do, AB has its own structure. You would have seen the Excel correct. If they are not ready to send in this template that we wanted, then there is no other option. We have to go for Studio only because you have to prepare your template. Otherwise, someone have to go and manually do it. Then it is not automated. 100% automated. Correct. Your vendor also should agree. Obviously, when we go for a design, we have to push for. This is how Workday works. You send the template. First, you have to give the template and ask them to deliver. And if they are not ready to deliver and business also agrees that they are not going to deliver, that's when you will go for a studio. That's it. I think first option. Why we have to go for studio? Vendor is not ready to change our input files. Now that you decided now, in this case, let's put that I'm not going to fill the template based on what you have given. Instead, I'm going to send the data in a CSV file. You prepare your own template. That's how we have gone for a studio inbound. Then how do we design? High level. How do we design integration? First, the file will be the steps I'm talking here. The talent system vendor will drop the file in a SEF folder. And then I have to retrieve the file. And then once the retrieval is completed, I got like 10 line items of employee skills data. I have to check all the employees that are there in the file. is present in Workday or not. Correct. That we call it as Workday validation. We are checking the data that we got it in. We are going to update an employee ID. To update that employee ID, I have to make sure that the data that I'm passing inside Workday or the employee ID that I'm passing inside Workday is already available. If it is not available, you should make sure that I'm going to add this out saying that this employee ID is not available in Workday. I can't update your skills in Workday. That we call this Workday validation. How do we do that? We can do it using HashMap or we can do it using Accessibility 3-point accumulator. In this case, one by one report validation, it's time consuming. Maybe we will be having a report having all the active employees. Maybe take one by one through splitter that is maybe working for certain number of data in the file, but it not go beyond 20,000 or like that. It can work for 50 also. Haven't seen. So time consuming. AB. You have 10,000 employee IDs. And all those 10,000 employee IDs, I'll go and put it in the hash map. And then from your input, you'll pick up the employee ID and then go and check. I have 1, 3, 4 as my employee. ID is that 1, 2, 3, 4 is available in my hash map. If it is available, which means it is present in Workday, but it's not available, does not present. I'm going to throw error. This is kind of example we are going to do. Yes, we will be doing it as part of our hands-on. Is this one from, like you are going to take this session for another more 45 minutes. What I would suggest probably, once they explain this, inbound and outbound will close it outbound. How we do it? Just having a quick question over here. Like currently, I go out to Studio Access. Just having a question like if I want to connect to a web service. From last few days, I'm not able to connect to web service. If your tenant is connected, say for implementation tenant, one of the connection is established. You should be able to. In Schema Taster, you can in one of these, the web service and get it. The target should be auto-populated. Is it correct? It should be auto-populated. If it is not populating, there is one configuration that you are missing. I'll show you. Today, I just need that little help. I'll show you. I'll end up this end of the session. I'll show you then. Say I can connect to RDP. I connected through my Mac. I have a screen. As FTP folder, retrieve the file and then you have a Workday validation, hash map or accumulator. Accumulator will come into picture when you go for the streaming. If the number of data are more than will go for a quick question like accumulator access into 3.0. It's within that async component. Within that you are talking about accumulator access into 3.0. Accumulator is a concept as part of accessibility. 3 final. This concept. Now you mentioned that hash map will take more time, correct? It is time consuming. And it's not consuming time. Whenever you are creating a report, go by Slater aggregated. Hash map is something you have the data from the team and pull it up and make a collection. You're talking about that 100 employees, and then for each employee you call a report and check whether the employee is present. 1 bar. Let's make the external file. Do the validation. I have a report. And then one by one you are taking through report. That is just that. I would suggest that if the data that you are going to get is more than 10 record or 50 record, let's put that. You're talking about 20,000. I'm saying only 50. You're going to have more than 50 records. Then I would suggest to go for individual transaction check. Instead, go for hash map. It should be in 2 digits. Then we should go for one by one checking. And if I'm reviewing it, I'm going to reject away, saying that this is not going to be acceptable. We can do that also, but just you talked about the individual transaction check. That is a time consuming. Hash map is going to be good for 100k employees. Let's put that way. Or 100, more than 100k also, it will be fine. But you have more than that data. Most of the customers won't have that much data. But still, suddenly you got the data. Now most data. And that's when we'll go for accumulator concept. This will be faster than this. Hash. If it is less than 50 individual transaction, more than 50 25k employees, go for hash map. If it is more than that, then go for accumulator. Now next one is field validation. What do we do as part of field validation? This is where we check whether your employee ID is having numeric value or not. And skills, you are expecting certain data. Is that not having a special character, for example? All these checks that we do, or it should not be empty. The fields shouldn't be empty. Here we are checking whether fields should not be empty. All this field level validation will be doing it as part of here. Once we have done this validations, then we will go for web service posting. And then we go for logging. This is how you design your inbound integration. In outbound here, web service posting, you're doing it. After web service posting, you'll be logging it. I have received 10 records. In the 10 records, A got processed. 2. Then you have to capture why it has failed. What is the reason behind that? Is it failed because of Workday validation or is it failed because of field validation? You have to mention that. That's where the logging comes into picture. Now this is for inbound. The outbound is nothing but just an opposite of this. You'll be extracting the data. Here outbound. you'll be extracting the data from. Here it is going to be Workday to vendor. Whichever the data vendor that you want to send the data, you can just update it. And then what you do? You extract. I should have taken the new slide itself. Extract the data from Workday. And then do a logic if you want it. Let's put the logic transformation, not logic transmission. Let's go for a data transmission. And then, if you apply any logics, apply it and then deliver the file to the downstream system. You don't need a logging here because your logging is nothing but your output file. If at all, if any specific requirement comes at that, you know you have to put something for logging. Anything. Then we can go for another file. Otherwise, usually it is going to be a one file that will be delivered. This is on Workday vendor output file. And Boomerang, we talked about the business case. Boomerang is going to be your time of data. For example, you want to update, extract the data for a worker, and then update within Workday. Then that's where it is going to be a boomerang. We'll go through these three types of integrations and the components that we will be using to build those integrations to attain this logic in the coming days. This is the one that I was talking about. Just search for Workday SOAP API documentation. You get the first hit, Workday Web Services Directory. And then this will show what is the current version that is running. This is a version 4.12. And then these are all the web services that are available. And the operations. For example, you want to find out each are related web services. These are all the operations that are available under the services. I hope you'll go out and do it. Now, if you are experienced, you know where your web service is residing. If you are not experienced, then the only option that we have is you have been given a particular task to do it, to update the data in Workday. But you don't know which web service to use. Whether it's for extracting data from Workday or updating data inside Workday, you need a web service report. But updating Workday, obviously you need only web service. When you don't know which web service to use, then you have to come here and then read the description first. What is that area I'm looking for? Which of my requirements comes from which area? Is it the talent? Am I going to update skills? Or is it about position? Then you have to go for staffing. Or is it something on the HR side? Or is it something related to financial management? You have to create a general ledger or a supplier request. Then it is going to be part of financial management. Are you looking for a payroll related performance management? When you are not sure how to go and search the web service that you wanted, you have to come here and then read the description what it is about. Over the period, with your experience, you know exactly under which service your web service falls. Now my requirement is, for example, I want to create a position. This is where I have a create position. I have it. I know that the create position comes as part of staffing. I'm just coming inside staffing and then I'm searching for create position. Now for create position, I have probably 1, 4, 6, 7, We have close position, create position, edit position restrictions. These are all the position related web service. There are get positions. You have it. And then you have import create position. I was talking about your question here. Model. Go. Over here it display. I see that now. You are asked to create position. And your need is going to be like I'm going to create 10 positions. Then you can go for a normal create position. But you are going to create thousands and thousands of positions. Then this is the high volume web service. Takes the create position restriction. Then in that case you have to go for an import create position. What does it do? Here the question is create position and import create position. If I want to load book data, I should use, as I understand, input create position. Is there a difference in my studio design whenever I call a web service called create position, not input create position? I will be sending one by one data. In that case, say, for some 10 positions are coming from a file. In that case, I need to design it accordingly, one by one, teaching by splitting the data from the file and using splitter. And what is the design perspective? What is the change if I use import create position? When you go for import create position, it is not going to be an individual splitter or aggregator. You are going to have an XML and then you are going to convert that into a web service. You have 100 or 1,000 create positions, then you are going to put like batch request is going to be you put all in one web service and then you push the data into Workday. Then Workday will process this data in the background. Here the import generally works in the background. You run the integration and it will run in the background. Import create position. Whereas the create position in our web service, classes, maybe sessions, can we create this too and see how the things are happening? It's like, what is the difference between these two? Just trying to understand, because based on that I need to design my integration. It should be a bulk processing. And that way I need to import the data. Say, for create a file with 10 positions, import it into bulk and create only create position and by one fitting data, and we should see that. Because if you don't understand the difference, then how should we use those web services in our design? Probably second this, topics will come when you go for an inbound design. We'll just go for it and do that. It'll be covered as I'm saying. We'll have one with the create position, one integration or one sample that they put create position. How we are going to do. If you know exactly what is that you're looking for. But again, now I'm just going back to the topic. You want to create position. The first and create position. You have to know what are the web services that are available as part of your create position. You have to understand create position as a single web service. And the single web service is not editing the existing one naturally. Correct? You want updated and then you can't use the create position. You have to go for edit position. Sometimes as per the design itself. Workday will design in such a way that a web service will have both operation add as well as update and then delete also. All three will be designed in one web service. Otherwise, Workday will provide individual web service per operation. Here a typical example here, the moment position is created, you can't delete it because you have used it. Correct in Workday. If you have used any object, then you can't delete it. You can inactivate it or you can just mark it as closed. The status will get changed. And then if a particular object is not used at all and it is not at all relevant anywhere and Workday provides an option, you can go and delete it, unless and until that history is not required. You can delete the ones that are not effective, dated. Effective dated, you can only inactivate them. Delete position or any in case of anything, deletion, then you are saying through web service, there is no option to do that. If Workday provides that option, now you created a position, for example, and that position you linked to some employee, and then the employee or he just moved out. Then what do you want to do with that position? Are you going to delete the position or you're going to close the position? If you delete the position, then you will be losing the history of who that employee attached to the position. There is no track, correct? Whereas when you close the position, which means that position is not available for anyone, but it is still available for your tracking purpose or history purpose. The objects that are used, and if it is effective dated mostly or Workday, will not give the delete option. You can create a supervisory org. It's effective dated. You cannot delete it. You cannot delete it. You won't find a delete supervisory org in this. The same applies for all the effective dated objects. If it is effective dated, you can inactivate. You can't delete. If it is a task based, there are some tasks that you're just creating a country, for example. I'm saying it is not a business process related. It is just a country data. You're just creating it. Just giving an example. And that is a task based, which means there is no effective dated. It is a non-effective dated data that you're entering. You can delete the data if that country is not used by any of the other objects. You create a country and you tag that country to an employee. Then you can delete the country because there is another object linked to it. Now you delete it or that employee is not tagged to that country. He moved to another country, for example. Then that one country is not having any relation with other business objects. Then your country can be deleted. Makes sense. See the difference. Oh, I'm talking in it. Same way, you have to check what is your requirement. You're asked to edit a position, or you're asked to create a position, or all three you're asked to do. Then, based on your requirement, in one studio assembly you will be using create, edit, and close. There are cases where one web service will take care of all. All delete, update, create all. Find out which web service you're looking for or what is the operation that you want to do. You want to edit a position, but if you have used to create position, obviously you can't use that at all. It's not going to allow you to edit the field position. Read your requirement and then read your description on the web service that it is going to do, and then decide your web service accordingly. Mostly the web services will have. In general, it is designed in such a way that get web service or put web service. And now nowadays there is one model that we have, import web service, that has come in the last 3-4 years if I'm not wrong. Mostly the integrations will have these names in the start. All starts with put it is going to. You are going to update the data into Workday. Import. Also, you're going to update the data into Workday, but in a bulk, in a high volume. And get is nothing, but you're getting. You're extracting the data from Workday and then sending to some of the downstream systems. On top of that, you will see special ones which are called edits. And then create a couple of create. These are all old designs probably. But now the numbers are comparatively less. Get and puta and import are the majority ones. How the integration, the SOAP APIs are designed. This is about how a PI is designed. Now you go inside a create position. And inside create position, you have web service request response elements. You can click on this web service. From here, create positioning. This is your RTL. This is your WSTL, how it is designed. This is here. It's stuck. That is too big. And this is your XT and this is your USTL. And the size is bigger. It is not opening. And if I open here, it is not going to see this clearly. This is your WSTL and the other one is your XT. Or just have an idea. This is overall web service development part. Now how it is defined, what are all the parameters that it will take? All those details will be available as part of your WSTL file and then the XSD, the schema file. Now your request, how my create position request is going to look like. This is where our interest is. I'm going to send a request to Workday. And then by filling all the details that I've required for a web service, that I'm going to use this request. A request create position request. I'm just opening the SOAP app API. And here you can come and find out which tags are mandatory, which tags are optional. The optional tags are, obviously it is optional. It's required. You can fill it, otherwise you can leave it. The mandatory ones are based on your requirement. You will design your web service or you will clean up your web service. Which tag that I wanted. I'll just push it accordingly. Now there's a request. Now the response. When I send this request, what is the data that I'll be getting? This is how my structure is going to be inside. Here I'll be getting all the data that I wanted. I will see in detail. When you go for a request here, the business process parameters, how my web service request should be filled. When you open this here, it says create position request and then next followed by business process parameters. Now, if you come here you see business process parameters and before that there is a version that we have. And where is the version here? This is the version string. How this version has to be filled. That's the data that is given here. It should be string, it should be web service version. And then next one is what? Next one is business process parameters. In business process parameters, this is my section. It starts from here and then all the way goes until business process parameters. This is a business process parameter since all these are business process parameters. What is the data that I should be passing as part of this business process parameters and how that data type should look like? That is what is defined here. Go to business process parameters and it says auto complete should be boolean. Where is the auto complete here? This is the one. Auto complete should be boolean, which means this tag will allow only true or false. That is what it is saying here. And run. Now it is going to be boolean. When you use this tag and make sure you are using only boolean. Instead of boolean, if you give run now, yes, autocomplete. No, it is not going to work. When you design your web service, you have to make sure what is the type of the value that I can pass inside the web service. And then comment data, then business process attachment data. The moment you see comment data, it has a business process comment data, which means it is a subtag that is having. This is on a one business process parameter section. You have all these parameters. And in that there is a comment data. Comment data has another section or subsection. That subsection has comment data. If you look at here, this comment data is coming inside a tag. That's why you will see another box here or subsection here. What is that you can enter here? Here you can enter string, prior form of comment regarding the business process. And here it has given the validation also. Business process has been configured to disable comment. Please remove the comment or change the settings in the business process policy tenant setup. Now you want to set up or you want to enter a comment when you create a position. Like for example, you are getting the create position data from some third party system and you want to put their external ID as part of your comment. And how do you put that in the comment? In the comment section, you can go and pass. I'm getting the data from my SAP success factors, for example. In success factors, the position ID is 1234. I want to enter that comment as part of here. You can pass that as a string because it is going to accept here. This is a string, comment string. It is going to accept here, but it will accept. But when you try to post the data, it may throw error. Or it will throw error if your business process is disabled for comment. You have to make sure to use this tag. You have to enable your comment in a business process. Is it? Can you talk about cardinality, please? What is Zoo1? This cardinality. I need to check whether it's a multi-instance or I have it. Give me a second. Is it something? 01 means 0. 0 means you can leave it blank or delete this particular stuff. 0 means not mandatory. And the 01 means like you have to have something with some value or some parameter should be mandatory as a part of that service. That's whether it's a mandatory or not. That's where this is coming in. Do one thing and I'll just make a note. I'll explain a little more clearly. Generally, cardinality falls in that area. Cardinality is nothing but the number of elements that you can group or send it. Correct? That's where the cardinality comes into picture. Whether it's a single object or multi-object, whether it's optional or is it a required, all those stuff. 0 and 1. Either you can provide data or you don't need to provide data here. Whereas if you are going to use business process attachment tag, it is 1 which means file name is must. It's a mandatory. The moment you see 01, it's optional or you can fill the data, or the moment you see 11, it is mandatory. You can see all this cardinality, probably in case if you want more information, I can get it. Generally, whether it's a mandatory or non-mandatory, or can I send multiple data, that's where this comes into picture. Or you can see cardinality version. Good, I'll cover it tomorrow. I'll get some more text for you, proper ones. Tomorrow class is not there, we'll be in touch on 18th. Sorry, weekends. Whenever we connect. Next class, whenever we connect, we'll just go through it. Cardinality, but on a very high level. Whether it's a mandatory or optional field, that's where it will come into picture. We have a document, but I have to just open it up. We won't waste the time here. I'll get the document readily available for our next class. Just going back. You've got a comment data, and then you have the data that you are going to fill in, and then you have a worker object. And in the worker object, what type of data that you are going to fill in? Are you going to pass it? And in case, if you are going to pass a worker object to create a position, for example, then what type of data that it is accepting? You have a tag worker. And that worker will have at the rate of type. Where do you see worker? This is your worker reference. You can provide a worker reference over here. Here you have a BSA ID and then specific type string. Here you can send a workers with ID. I hope you have an idea what is with ID. A unique ID that is created for. Just a few observations over here. If you see in your XML, can you open that ML? Cardinal. You just notice the cardinality is 1. But here it is mentioned as optional. Is it really mandatory for sending, creating a position, need to provide a worker ID? Is it mandatory? No, it is not mandatory, but it is not a 01, correct? It is a 11. We assumed like 1. 1 means you have to provide a data. Minimum 1 data should be provided, but there it is mentioned as optional. I don't think in create position we need an employee ID or worker ID. You don't need an employee ID. You can give a reference. Now we need to look at it. I just on the fly. I have picked up the data. Create position. You want a worker reference. What is that? Let me do one thing. Let me do that. I'll fetch the document for you. Cardinality, then I'll just go. Instead of just giving that info on the fly. If you are giving create position you don't require, but in which cases you are going to use this? Whether this worker reference you want to provide. Probably I need to check this whether this worker reference you want to give a worker reference and create position, or you want to link. You're creating a position and then link that to a particular employee, or you fetch the existing, generally the worker reference. We give it for a reference. You go and fetch the data based on this reference. since it is create position. Mostly that shouldn't be the case, but we need to check. What is the use of this worker reference? As I said, because anytime in any supervisory organization, if you create a position, how can you give the worker ID over there until and unless you create that position? First, we create the position in our organization, then assign a worker in that position. What is the meaning of this? Like why it's a when-to-when field or why here it is mentioned as optional, not getting it. Worker, it is necessary that he can be one on one position only. Correct. A worker can be linked to multiple positions also, the FT based ones. He can work into position. That can be possible. Yes, that's a dual role FTE, the FTE. You create a position with the 20 hours of effort in a week. Another position has another 20 hours of effort in a week. Then two position is handling with the 0.5 FTE allocated to each position. Very much possible. Haven't seen that. Not in detail, no. But it is possible. Workday allows that. Sometimes it is not that a worker can be assigned only to only one FTE, which means 100% effort. Sometimes a worker can be assigned more than one FTE also. A worker is different, FTE is different. A worker is an individual entity assigned to a particular position, but that FTE is that particular worker is allowed to work only 40 hours in a week, correct? One FTE is not but 40 hours of work, effort worker assigned to work. Correct, that is one FTE. And now one employee comes and says, I want to work for your company, but I'm back from ML, for example, maternity leave, but I don't want to work 8 hours, I want to work only 4 hours. A worker is again tagged to position, but he's tagged only for 20 hours in a week, which is a 0.5 FTE. A company can have 10,000 workers. I'm just giving you. But the 10,000 workers may not translate into 10,000 FTEs. Sometimes a company can have less FTEs, sometimes can have more FTEs. Makes sense. That's a position. Say FTE can be reduced or increased. Now I have only position that requires only 4 hours. Then one position will be assigned to that person. The remaining 50%, what I am going to do, I'm going to create another position and I'm going to put 50% in that. Then two positions that an employee will handle. My interest is here in the web service like create position. Why do we? Worker ID is really mandatory. I mean, whenever we are online, I'm talking about in tenant. If you create a position, create position is something. It should always be a vacant position where employees being assigned later. Point of time. But whenever we are doing through web services, is it like we can do creating position with worker assigned? Is that any scenario happens like that? No, I don't recall any of those things. This process parameters. We can do it through EIBs. EIB, we can create template and try to generate template and put the data and see whether it's mandatory or not. And even if it's not, it's optional. We can provide an employee ID, valid employee ID, and see whether it's importing or not. That way we can check the web service. What is the use of this in reality? We can do that. Yes, no need to go to here. We also. No, I mean that is the one way of checking web service. Like in case of any error, you are getting in a studio you are trying to import. You might do creating fast, functional users. What they do basically generate the template and use that template to import the data. Create position where also we can feed the table. What are the mandatory fields? Those fields we can take as mandatory and use it in our studio. Whenever we call create position web service to put the key data. That way we can check. We can do it via EAB also. We can try by removing all the tabs and have the minimum. My intention is to learn as much as possible in terms of web service, how to import data if I use any other web service as well, not create position. What the structure is and how to understand what are the mandatory data I need to put and how to import it and call the coding. Do the coding in Studio. That's the intention. If you don't understand the structure of the web service, then you will never be achieving your goal. You need to understand it properly. What is the mandatory fields? How we should put the data to test the web service, then create your web service through components and all those stuff. That's what I'm trying to understand it. Just on the fly, I'm just showing how to understand. This is the past class. You are just trying to get the overview. Overview on how to read a SOAP API page. Just as I said. Yes. Do you know? If some requirement comes like, how do you define? Whether I should use a SOAP-based API or Rust-based API, is there any? Now, if it is going to be inbound, then obviously there is no REST call. You are going to go for SOAP call only. You are trying to say like only outbound we can use REST. REST cannot be used inbound. That's report as a service. Report as a service. You should use it only for outbound. That's when here, this is a create position. Means you are creating a position in Workday. There is no Rust comes into picture. It's only SOAP that is called. You're going to use it. What about gate workers? This is also using SOAP. Gate workers can be done through SOAP as well. Yes, I'm coming next now. This is an inbound. Now the same. You have a request to extract positions, the gate positions. Since we are talking about positions, let's go the same. We have a gate positions here. This is my gate positions. And I can get positions using SOAP also. I can get positions using REST as a service, REST reports, the Workday. If you ask me, the Workday clearly says you go for web service call if it is going to be your studio integration. And why web service? The web services are deployed in a different server altogether. They will never let that web service, the server, to go down because that is their heart. All the data, incoming data, outgoing data, everything happens through SOAP API. They always say go for SOAP if your data is huge. Now and then you have less data. For example, your get positions can get you. If there are like 100k employees, then it will fetch you 100k positions, correct. If it is a position and 100K employees are going to give you 100K positions. And if the number is going to be 100K positions, then we have to go for sweep a P, a call only. The volume is huge. The volume is huge, then you should go for web service. Very simple. The second one. Now I was asked to extract the locations from Workday Get Locations. The locations are basically your, let's put a business site, locations, how many places your company is present. Now they are present in 200 places, 2000 areas. Then you are looking at extract 2000 locations, correct? Those 2000 locations, you can get that using get locations or you can use it using your RAS. You can fetch it. Their rate is not going to be much difference because the number is less. And still, as a programmer, you really want to see what is the real difference. You're asked to extract like 10 fields of one location. Let's go for get locations. Let's get. Here it is. This is my get locations. I can use it using this web service also, or I can get it to using my report also. But how do I decide which? Report as you mentioned. In report, if I ask for location, these are the fields we need to extract from that location. When data source, choose data source. Correct. In report, what do you do generally? You have a location here, and if you know location ID, you can pass the location ID. I don't know the location ID. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the wizard and I'm going to say get all the location. Next, bring all the location. Data count is going to be 1 to 100. Finish. Now this is my web service to fetch all the locations. The count is 100 locations it is going to look for. You run this, you get an output over here. You got an output. What is the total? Since you got at 570 locations, have come in 6 pages and per page it is 100. And you can go. What is the maximum count? Do you have an idea? To the line is the maximum count. You can fetch all the data in one call also, which means all the 570 will be pulled in one request. But the recommended is 100. Go for multiple iterations, multiple requests. See, now this is taking time. It is going to fetch only 570, but it is taking time. Always go for a smaller numbers. Go for 100 per request, and then you can process one by one. You want to fetch 10 times the data, 6 times you have to call it here. This is one way. And second way, you go to Workday and then create a report, and then let's create custom report, and then say advanced, and then you want location data and you want to get it in a RAS call. Then you have to enable it as web service. And then search for locations. Now we have a location web service, data source. Now here, whatever the requirement that we have, you can add all the fields over here and then extract the data. Then you will get all the 570 locations. If you want to put location name, for example, and say, let us say, of course, The report is web service enabled. There is the I think we need to imagine to fulfill the prompt, and I'll do one thing. That's a part. Just remove the it's enabled. I can do it later. Now you run this. Just looking for a location usage for location. I'm selecting all and just giving it. Now I got the 5 or 70 locations. Your web service is going to get you 5 or 70 locations as well as your report is going to get 570 locations. But for smaller numbers, it is your call. You want web service or report, and still you want to go based on the performance. You can use both the components and see which component is taking more time. You can eradicate that and then go for a lesser time taking one. That's another way of doing it. As you said, always go for a count for a lower number. It's like count is 100. Then what is that in one phase? It will give you 100 locations, correct? And 6 pages are there. Are you going to explicitly design your studio for that web service? Correct, with discounts. If design a studio to fetch one by one 6 calls and fetch all the data and then store it in a variable. That's where we can see that. How do you use that? I'll get you an example. There we use a component. Page get component. What is that? Can you comment again? Get component. Page get, your voice is breaking. Oh, page get. Using that component, these 6 calls will be made automatically. You don't need to do anything. The parameters. Is it mandatory to do all when do this way, or we can just use the splitter and get it one by one? Not like that, like just asking a question. No, I'll get where the splitter will come into picture. Web service call. This is outbound. No need to call the web service. It's a gate. We will see. We will use one gate and then inbound. This is outbound kind of. This is an outbound thing. Use this web service, pull all the get locations of 570, or you can use a report and get all the locations of 570 locations. Which one to use? It's your experience would say if you are not experienced. If it is less than 5,000 records, go for report. Otherwise, go for web services. Okay, I don't want to take a decision in that mode. Then what I would suggest you add on web service component in the studio, add one RAS call component in the service, and then check how much time it is taking to fetch the data using web service. How much time it is taking data to fetch the report as a call service. If this is going to take like 5 minutes and report. See the override over here, like in case of report, I don't need to do any extra coding. I just call the report. Convert the Excel. Maybe I need to get the data in CSV format, for I can use XML to CSV and export the data correct. That component using the. Now, in case of using Studio, you are seeing that page, concept came. And I need to do some extra things. Correct? I don't know. I never used it. For Git things, I never used web service. We can have an example for that. I'll teach you how to. And now, this is the example I'm talking about. Now there's another example, Git worker. But the Git worker should be. You should get the data using those 4 dates. Your entry dates and then effective dates. If that is your requirement, they are looking for a delta file or change file. then there is no other option. This web service only, though it is complicated. You have to go for web service only because the Delta file you will get it only using web service. No web service means we can use core connector. Core connector and call the core connector from Studio. That is also possible. But if you are going for Studio, then there are two ways you can build it. One is use the core connector worker and then build a Studio after that. Then you will get two programs correct, which means two. But now, as a customer, I'm going to tell you no. If you're going to use Studio, then I don't want another integration to be created in Core Connector. Use everything in Studio. Why should they have the burden of creating core connectors? Two processing time. Two processes at the same time, is that also possible? You know change data can be created in Studio. Yes, through web services. You get worker, for example. Work. This is get workers. And here you have the updated time, updated through effective data time. This is your Delta file. I need to pass the last thing and through launch parameters or something maybe. In Studio, you can do that. In this case, report will be much easier, but in this case you need web service. There is no other option. You have to build your web service only. Why you are saying report? It's not possible. We can do through filtering. Filtering, we can give the yesterday days and current day every time. Every time you can build that day -1, current day -1 and a half to change data. But in that case, the inefficiency is in case of some failure happened on the previous day that will not be able to fetch the data. The data will be lost. For 1 day data, you have the answer. Data will be lost and using a report, I want to run the integration 2 times in a day. Or I want to run the 2 times in a day. Then there will be duplicate data when I run the report in today's data correct. Whereas when you use Core Connector, your duplicate data will not be there. That will be taken care of by the template. Last successful effective data. You can, if you are a super duper reporting. Could it be the expert? Maybe. And be the load date to build and give the filtering criteria. Correct? You can build that. Building is not a problem, one-time effort. But tomorrow you want to maintain it. Tomorrow there is a change that is coming in. You should be able to easily bring the change into the system. Your design should be always simple. At the end, my job is be done how it has to be done. It should be a very simple design. When it is very simple design, and then tomorrow when there is a new change that is coming in, then I can very easily accommodate that change correct. Yes, that's how my design principle is always. Go for a simple design. Even if there is a complicated design that a complicated requirement and break it into simple ones and then tag it accordingly. Get workers you want to use, then you want to use date, then you can go for this web service. And we talked about locations. Location you want to fetch, you can fetch using a report or using this. As I said, you can apply that in the tenant. You can go. Did I say tenant? Sorry, in your studio you can use both the components and then see which component is taking more time and which component is taking less time. Is it a cold or ask call? Based on that, you can decide which component I'm going to go. That's it another way. You hear me? What I'm saying, I'll start with the normal basic ones. Generally, as part of my studio session, what I do, I'll just start from there. And in case if you say, no, I know this item or I know this concept and I don't need to go for basics, then you can just tell me. You can just jump in and then move on to the next item. Generally in Studio, the first thing that we look at is how your view should be. You can go to a window show view. You have many explorers here on the left side. Generally what we use is the Project Explorer, where your local copy resides, and then followed by your Cloud Explorer, where we connect to our tenant, and then the deployed clarifiers are available as part of this. That is fine. And then after that we have on the side, if you look at it, we have a Schema Explorer where we pull the data or we pull the web services. You can come here. Otherwise, let me just do it. I'm just opening the web. Sure. I want a Schema Explorer. And then I want to take one of the web service. How do I take it? Go to Add Workday Web Service. Then the latest version will be shown latest and then one version before that. Two versions will be shown. You pick up the one that is latest. You can pick up all or you can pick up the particular model that you're looking for. When you know that I'm going to pick up or I want a web service that is part of staffing, then you can select only staffing. Then your staffing web service, APS, will be listed over here. What is this error? I don't know. It's not that I saw. It's fine. Now here, if you look at it under staffing, you have many web services. And you have access to these web services from here itself. You can just go for a click and then open this option. Click Open App Request in Web Service Tester. Then the web service that you're looking for will be given over here or it will be loaded over here. This is all the overall. All the sections will be included as part of this request. You can pick up this request from here and then you have to cleanse it. Cleanse the web service based on your need because this web service is built to get all the data or all the possibilities of data that you can get in. To create position, all the types are present over here. But for your requirement, it is not necessary that you have to go for all. It can be minimized version of web service also. You can go for it. Probably I can show one more item. If I go for a risk, get workers, not part of here. Just trying to see if get workers is here. Get workers. If you go for it, this is the get workers web service. And you can minimize this by manually removing the tags. You can do it. For example, I don't want any request references or I don't want any request criteria. Let's remove. I don't have any request criteria. Then you can just remove all. And then you can say that in the response filter, we are just putting the number page 1 count 100. It will pull based on how many counts per page that we are going to pull. I don't want to give this one also because I want to check or I'm going to get the data based on one employee. I don't want this. Now that you have trimmed your web service to have only the employee ID reference, and then followed by you have the response group. In the response group, we have all these groups. You want all. What is your need? If your need is, I want only the compensation data, then you can include only the compensation section alone. Or you want the personal information of an employee. You want the first name, legal name, and those details you wanted. Then you can add this include personal information or show all personal information. Only these two tags is enough. Based on your requirement, you can decide what should be my response group. Now there may be questions. Should I really go for the response group that I wanted? And why don't I have all the response groups that I have? You can have it. When you have 1 or 10 employees, all the response group is fine. But when you have thousands and thousands of employees as an output, then why do you want unnecessary data? Which means probably. I can give one example. I'm searching for the correct job. Let me pick up this employee, Josh Allen. Now this employee is having an employee ID 21610. And this 21610, I want to fetch details for 21610. And when I run this, I get the output. And this output, if you look at it, we got 51 line items for one worker. And what if you have 100 workers? Then it is going to be, you have to add two zeros. 65,000 line it is going to be. What if it is 10,000 worker? It is going to be in lakhs. Do I need that much data when I pull the data into Studio when you write the Studio program? That you have to consider. Now I want only the cost centered data. For example, I'm looking for an employee's cost centered data if it is present, and keep only the cost centered. This cells exclude cost centered. True, changing it to false. See, I don't know whether they have any cost centered at hand. Let me try. No, I don't have any cost centered at hand. We go with the normal example. I want to include the personal information, for example. Now I have two response groups which are included. One has include reference and the other one has include personal information. And I run this. I get this worker reference and then personal data. I'm getting it now. If you look at this, then don't see. And here we had 51 without removing all. Now I have only hint 30 cell left. We have reduced almost 4 times of the line items by adding the response group. And even in that, you just want basic information whether the employee is present in Workday or not. This will provide you the basic information like include reference true. This is going to say what is the employee's ID and what is the worker descriptor and then winged. This is the very basic information that you will be getting. If you want only basic information, or as I said, you want legal name, then you don't require reference data because you're not going to use this tag, this worker reference tag. You're not going to use it anywhere. Then remove this response group, then keep only the personal information. And when you run this now, you got the details, the personal information details, but you are getting it as part of your web test testing. You're asked to fetch the first name and last name. The data is over here. And then you're asked to fetch what is the country that the employee belongs to. You want alpha 234, numeric 34. You can get all the details. But can we? Now that I want only the personal information in that I'm looking for example, the address, for example, contact address data. I want this address. Can I get only this tag alone? That's not possible because when you include personal information, then it brings whatever is built for that particular response group. All the data will be fetched and then it will be coming in your response group. You can trim this data, but instead of using all the response group, you select only the response group that you're interested in. Your requirement is fine. Based on that, you include that. This itself will reduce the numbers greatly. If you look at this one, we're talking about 131 line items. We got it. From here, you can pick up the data that you're looking for. You want a particular employee's postal code. You can go and fetch only the postal code and then go ahead. That's how you do the web service cleansing based on your requirement. Suresh here. Can I interrupt? I have one question. Say for I want the specific information from the web service response. Like we have from report, say for custom report, when we call, there is a way to segregate the data through X, L. The XML, we can do split the data based from the XML using splitter. Get one by one fields over there in props and then transform it to XSLT, whatever, if we need something. And from web service response, do you know how to get specific say, for I need address line data from this response? There must be some syntax to have it in props variable. Is that possible? It is possible. We can do that. Now, that's the thing I wanted to see. How do you get it? Now, for example, you have this post load. How do you get this post load? How do you set this post load into a property? That's your question. Yes, I know how to get it through splitter. How to get this stack from report response or from file data. If there is a CSV file, then we convert it to CSV to XML. Then from there we know how to segregate the fields and use that in, maybe do some transformation and all. Same way, we can do it for web service also. If you know you can do it for report, then this is also similar process only. How we can get it? Because the response is also an XML. how to get those values from that particular tag. We can. Whenever I build an integration outbound, I'll use a web service as our data source. And then we'll show you how to do it. But on a very high level, you are trying to fetch a tag data, or this particular tag data that you wanted, then the basic thing is you need to know what is the expert for this tag and how to go in that tag and expert. How to get that from response, web service response. This is web service response. Well, generally we call Workday out so to call the web service. Now from that web service response, we have to have the data fetched. And then maybe I will do some transformations and all. When you use Workday SOAP component and you give this as your request, then SOAP component will give this XMonal as your output. Yes, now you have to get the XPath of this postal code. How you can get it? Come down. There is an XPath Explorer in the down. Click on this XPath Explorer. And then you want postal code XPath. Then double click this. Not getting it. This should be in the left side, I think. Or you need to create XML file and then get it. I'm going to do that. I have other ones. I'm sorry. Or put it inside as you test. I have this X. Now this is my test. Control A, Control C. Now I'm here. I'm talking about postal code. Where is postal code? This is postal. Here is the postal code. Now select this postal code. Now you have the XPath here. And then push this up. Then it will come as part of XPath. This is document, but this is XPath. On the side you see evaluate XPath. When you click this, you get the postal code. You follow. You did where from, you did evaluate. From up this one. On the side you see evaluate XPath. You see, that's all. Evaluate path. Click that. Now you got the postal code from this XMen document. How do I get it using this XPath? This XPath. I'll be passing it into my property. I'll set a property and then pass this XPath and then store the Zotli 116 into the property. That's how I take the XPath of any value. You want the municipality that the employee belongs to. Just double click the municipality. You get the XPath here and then click apparel. It goes up, click this and I got the Boston here. That's an easy way to do the XPath for any tag. Otherwise, what you have to do, you have to start from here, which is my root node, and then from root node, what is the next tag? You have to travel through all the tags to reach out to where it is. Many times, there are chances that you miss the tag. You'll miss some tag. You'll be losing some time. This is the easiest way to get the XPath. I want first name. I got Josh and I have the XPath ready. That's how we get the XPath. coming back. Now you have a request and then you have a response. In the response group, make sure you're including only the data that you're looking for, not more than that. This will greatly reduce your file size, the output size. Here, another question is like, you have seen the page concept over here. Whenever you copy any of the web service, you'll see in the response, you'll get maybe page and 100 page or something like that. Correct? If I keep in text, say for I don't want one employee, maybe I need all the employees who is active in this tenant, say for from gate workers. Now tell me like there are maybe 1,000 or more than 1,000 employees. Now it will come through pages and all. How to process all the data. Maybe I need to do some transformation. Top of that, all the employees. Some manipulation of data. What should be our approach to do that? We'll be covering that as part of our session. We will be using that is a separate coding syntax. There are splitters or I don't know. Splitters will be good for this or not. It is not splitters. It is not splitters. We'll be using a component called the page get component. Those type of little complex things I wanted to see. We'll be building it. Now today's first session, I can directly jump and then create a studio like this. You want to? No. This is my third week studio session for one of the batch. This is another batch which I'm doing and I'm going to do the hash map. I can jump directly. That's what I was saying. If you know concepts, if you want me to jump in, I can jump in directly to the concepts. But anyway, it will be covered. That's what I'm trying to say now. I'm just showing how you should look at the studio. What are all the windows that you have? How to use the Schema Explorer. And in the Schema Explorer, the SOAP web service, use API when you get it. How to clean that up? Because you'll be getting a bigger web service request. How to minimize that number? The number of rows that you have in your request and limit to what you want. This tent is having like 800k plus employees. By mistake, if you run a bigger number, then obviously it is going to take more time. Limit your output based on what you want. What is your requirement? Now sometimes some web services Workday provides one option, something called Workday Web Service Builder Wizard. Now you want all workers. You look at here. You see there's a get all workers or get workers by ID. You want to one employee, you can click the top one employee, and then again, and then whatever the response group, you manually delete that. Here they are giving an option. You go and select which response group that you want. I am this one. Thus you can do it. If you really want to do it, like just directly come in and do it. This you can do or you can do. It is only available for get workers, not all the get components. That's correct. It won't be available for all and only selected web services. We have even get also. Not all get will have it. Now I just run this and saying that you know page count 1 and pick up the page count 1 and count is 10. I'm just trying to get the data. Let's see how much time it is going to take. Now this is about your Schema Explorer and you want to see the process details. It will be listed over here. Mainly we use this Schema Explorer. Let me just put that over here. We use this Project Explorer, Cloud Explorer, and then Schema Explorer, followed by this Properties window. This Properties window, you'll have servers, the connectivity part, and then tasks problems in case if your Air Studio component is having an issue. When you try to deploy, that is what will happen. All your the errors that you get it will be displayed under this problems tag. You want to check what is the property or properties that are available for a component. Now, for example, you go to inbound and then start here. This is my component and the properties tab will show what are the properties that I can set it. What are the services that are available? Everything will be listed under the properties window. Then this console will show what is that it is doing. When you run the integration, know what at all it is invoking. All the detailed information, again, this is we may not be that much interested. But here sometimes it will show where it is failing that details. Also, it will show as part of the console. And XPath Explorer. I showed already XPath Explorer. You can get the XPath of a particular tag using this XPath Explorer and Process Monitor. When you run the integration, what is happening? Is that completed where it is running? What is the integration that you're running? And in case, if it is completed with errors, you can go for a check from here itself why it is completed with errors. You can double click this. Then it is going to show what is a log file. It is importing a log file. If it is completed, it will show. In case if you are printing some values, for example, then it will show what is the value. This is nothing but from your tenant. You go and check the server log, correct? That server log, you can see it from here itself. That is the log file. And then consolidated report viewer. This consolidated report viewer, or take one session. This will show when you run the integration per component, how much time it took. You can see the component and duration. You can import the consolidated report viewer and then get the data. Here, import consolidated report. Let's see whether I'm getting it or not. I'll just put it over here. Let's see finish. You can fetch the consolidated report. Import consolidated report. You can fetch it. And then this will show which component takes how much time correct. You're talking about performance. You are writing up studio code and then you check what is the timing that it takes to complete a particular component. You can look at it in this, which one is taking more time. The Workday Outrust is taking 1043 milliseconds, which is the highest one. And sometimes, if this is taking 5 minutes, for example, then I have to do a performance tuning for this component. You open this one from where? Profile. Here I click Import Consolidated Report. Why you took the last one? March and why? This is for an outbound system. You are trying to see. I'm just showing you an example because this is the integration that I have run from Studio. But this is how you see how this consolidated report viewer. I'm showing what is this consolidated report viewer will look like. This is how you go through the options that are available in Studio, the windows that are available. These are all the mainly used windows. There is an outline window that you see here. you can drive us through your assembly. If your assembly is too big, then you can just have a miniature version over here, outline view, and then you can just travel from here itself to that particular component that you're looking for. That's the outline component. This is on a very high level. What are all the components that are available and clipboard history? What are all you copy pasted? And all those steps are available as part of clipboard history. But mainly we use Schema Explorer, your Properties window, your Cloud Explorer, and Project Explorer. These 4 windows are important for us. I'm going to create a new project. How do we create a new Workday assembly project? Then give the project name. I'm going to give a still. That's the Let's put this one answer. That's code. This is the collection name. By default, the collection name will come. If you want to change, you can change it. No, you can leave as it is also. I have created a project now. Next, let me check my Cloud Explorer. We created the Where is the rascal? This is the one. This is only. I have the project ready. Now I have to start working on That's even. Components. The first component that we use in the Workday project is Workday in component and Workday in component. There are multiple services there. You see from on top attribute map service, delivery service, listener service, the driver sequence generator, transaction logs, report service, customer. If you want to update, you want to use the data initialization service, or you want to use the existing service, reference. You want to use an attribute for an integration. Then you can just, in this, start from here. You give the attribute for your integration. Let's go to as this is a attribute service. Attribute map service as when you add attribute map service, any attribute that you want to set for your integration can go from here. You can add a simple data reference. Simple type reference or reference type. You can and send a simple data reference data. In a data, 3 type of data you can select and then send it. Integration attributes. Same way. You can go for a map source. What is the internal type? What is the external type? For example, you're sending a gender data from Workday to downstream system. And then Workday, we have it as male and female. The downstream system says I want M, for example. You can create that mapping over here and the transmission will happen automatically. We use this attributes and maps for them. Attribute. Let's put this way. The rest. You want to pause, but the date is not going to change for quite some time. Let's put like for a year. You're not going to touch it. You can configure the attribute in a launch parameter. Attribute. If you are going to change the launch parameter value very frequently, then you put it under launch parameter. If you are not going to test that attribute for quite some time, then I would suggest to go for attributes because attributes is set up on an integration level with launch parameters for every run. You can change it. Understood. You want to pass a value, but every run you are going to change it. Then it should be part of LP. But you want to pass a value, but that is not going to get changed for quite some time. Then you go for a integration level value you want to pass. Then it is attributes. Now then I can give example with respect to this RAS. Generally one I will give it. I want to create. Let's put this way. Whenever I run an integration, I have generally the SOAP call will have a version. We have seen that. This version, for example, this version. Generally, this is a changing one, correct? Every time when a new version that comes, this version will change. I don't want this. Web service version P hotcode in my assembly. Instead, I want to pass this version as an attribute. Tomorrow when Workday says, I move from 1400 to 42 for example, then I don't want to open the assembly code and update this to 42 instead. I want to update this in the you are in the attribute itself. That time we can use this version in the attribute and then change it as part of an attribute. Otherwise, let's put this one autocomplete through. This is very default through is there, but your requirements. It will be, most of the time, it will be true. But sometimes, I want the business process to be kicked off manually. I want to make this as a false. Can you give an option to select this as true or false in the attribute? Instead of hard coding a value, if you want to get that value from a user and then pass it inside, then it is going to be in an attribute. Now you have the launch parameter. In this launch parameter, You can add a simple type. Here you say, I want to have a date parameter. This is date 1. And here you say this is date and time or date you want it. I want it for example. And you want to give any default value for that. Otherwise, he'll go as it is. And I want to pass one more date. This is date 2. And then go for a date parameter. That's it. Now I have launch parameter has 2 dates. That is 1. In the service, I need to use a report. And then in the report, a report service. I'm creating a report service. And in this report, I have to give an alias. And then give a report reference here. I don't think it is going to work today. I can't connect to tenant. You create a report and then you create an alias. Now what you have done? You have done 2 items. One is you created a report and you created an alias. And then you will be selecting a report that you wanted. And in the launch parameters, you created 2 dates. And then you created a date and then default value bigger. We are going for. This is a SOAP REST component. Now you can see connect your Workday in component to Workday SOAP REST. And in the Workday SOAP REST, you select the report that you wanted to. Now you got the path. We got it. And now you put it. And then in the log, what this will do? This will start Workday. And then in the Workday REST, it will go and call a report. And then we are capturing the report output in a log. That's all we are doing here. In this, you created a report. In this report, if you don't want, if you are going to use any prompts, for example, the default ones, you should say, do not prompt at runtime, then because you're not going to give any value, you're going to give value only for this start date and end date. Your report, when you run it, it should ask only to prompt. You know, I don't want this. you know, 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 this is fast forward. None of the equipment is working, looks like. You know, can't take session in this way. Generally, if your question is how to get the date parameters into here, that was that is what you're asking. Probably next session I'll show. You have the extra path over here. And you get the day parameters from here. This day parameters. In then go and put a question mark. Now there is a let me put in a little different, easy way. Here you have a date parameters as a launch parameter. Now you have to get the date parameters correct, whatever. You are filling it in the launch parameter. You have to get that. How do you get that? You have to use the eval in the you create saying that the property control space. That's a shortcut. You want to see how many classes are there in Studio. Just put a control space. These many classes are there. The classes that are available for Studio. Eclipse is written on top of Studio, is written on top of Eclipse. You know that. Java Eclipse is a base for this. It is using Java classes. But to simplify, Workday has created their own classes And these are those classes. From here, you can take whichever. The class and function that you wanted. Now I want to create a property. I type prop and then control spacebar, and it will give an option. What a knowledge that I want to use props. Here I want to use launch parameter. Correct? I have used the. Here I have given the launch parameter abused date field, simple date field. I have used it. How do we get this date field from integration? Here launch parameter. The class name is LP. Launch parameters helper. Here you go for a. We have gone for a simple data. You have to go and search where is the simple data. This is simple data. I've seen how I have done. There is a date too. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take props. Prop equal launch parameter dot get simple data. I'm coming down. Simple data. I have simple data with the string provider and then string label and string. But I want this one only. Instead of label, what I have to pass? Copy the name. Copy the name. Put it inside. And copy the second date. And then on the left side, you come and say, this is date. And this is date 1. Now what we have done in the launch parameters, when you run the integration, you give some two dates correct. Those two dates. I have stored it in my property. Props of date 1 and then props of date 2 is having those two dates. And now here you have to pass it. Now here you go. And here your report is created. And tell me what prompt you wanted. Let it save it. Now here, you put a question mark and then you have a whatever the value that you have here. Here you have a start date correct. How do you get this? Probably let it set. Then I can see that this is going to be start date equal to your property. You can't pass the props of data as it is. You have to enclose it within at the rate of open bracket and then close bracket. This is how you pass the prompt value into a report. I want to. I have the second date also correct. How do I pass it? Put an answer and then go for end data equal at the rate open and close bracket inside the next date. The next date prompt we have given a property to. This is how you pass the prompt values into a report. Like that. And put it after that, whatever you have it. You paste it. Now you have the exact parameters that needs to be passed, but after equal whatever you have to replace that with your launch parameter. How do you replace at the rate? Open close places inside. Paste that. Property name. On second and the rate. And then go to evolve. This is for. And it correct. Date 1 is our start date. And in that is 2. See, like for example, you want to pass this value to effective date. Effective dates are just dates only. There are no times attached to it. Then you can use a date component. But you want to use it for entry moment. Entry moment always comes with the date and time. It depends upon what is your prompt. What is the value that you are passing? Based on that, you have to select your type of field. That's a Boolean date. Date and time number text. Based on that, you have to create it. In the launch parameter, you will be getting this date 1 and 2. Probably we can. Date 1, we are calling it as a start date. We can give a label name also accordingly. Probably this we can state that this is start date instead of date 1. And this one you can go for a date. And then get that value also accordingly. This is start date and this is end date. And then and that's all. Once this is done, ready. This is how you pass a launch parameter value. This is end date. If you look at here, your UR will say clearly what needs to be passed. You're not changing anything. Here you see correct. Follow the URL. You're doing nothing, just replacing the value. You want value, but that value should be dynamic. How do you get the dynamic value from launch parameter? From launch parameter, you're getting the start date and time, and you're just passing it inside. That's all. Don't change anything. If you change, it is not going to work. This is how you go for a workday. Rest with the prompt values. Once you have prompt is completed, you can put a sync mediation and then push it to whatever you want to do. You want to log it, or you want to. What I call you want to do a splitter. Any activities that you want to do, you can just move that. You can't deploy and run this, as we are not connecting. Studio is not connecting. But this will work. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@upptalk.com.